Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss about the political history of the Satavahanas. Satavahanas was a very powerful South Indian dynasty. They had preceded the Mauryas. When we are trying to understand the political history of the Satavahanas ruled for a period of more than 460 years. You can trace the political history of the Satavahanas from the late 2nd century to the 3rd century BC. And references of the Satavahana dynasty. For the first reference can be found in the Atreya Brahman, and the Atreya Brahman in fact refers to Andhra, the word Andhras, and the kings of the Andhras, Andhra Desam. And this reference at a later stage is understood to be the Western Deccan. And the Western Deccan was the region from where the Satavahanas expanded towards Maharashtra, towards Gujarat, and towards the coastal regions. So there is certain amount of controversy with regard to the origins and the antecedents of the Satavahanas. But there is an idea, an opinion expressed that the Satavahanas had preceded the Mauryas, and based on certain inscriptions that are available, a claim is made that the Satavahanas' original home is Maharashtra. Based on certain other inscriptions, a claim is made that they had ruled from the Western Deccan regions. However, whatever the region claims and the different opinions that have been expressed by the historians, they had established a very powerful empire, a centralized administration in which you have or you find some kind of political stability, social development, and cultural advancement. Along with this, there was development in the areas of trade and commerce. Because of the various coins that have been traced out and dated to the period of Satavahana, we can very clearly say that the Satavahana period, there was a lot of growth of trade and commerce in this particular period. So now I'll just try to show you certain slides which give you an idea of the period and times of the Satavahanas. And I will also show you a chronological order of the Satavahana kings. And I will also show you some slides which are connected to the glory of the art and architecture that was developed by the Satavahanas and which contributed to the cultural glory of this particular period. So the first slide that I'm going to show you is the slide of this is, the topic which we are going to deal. And the second slide is showing you the temple architecture of the Satavahanas. And on the right side, you can see the extent of the Satavahana empire. And this is a map that shows you about the contemporary political map in the 2nd century BC, where you can see Kanishka's empire, Magadhan empire, and the Andhra Desa, which I was referring to, a reference of which you can trace it out from the times of Atreya Brahman. And you can also see that there were Chola in the deep south. So this is a map which is trying to give you an idea of the geographical conditions during the period of Satavahanas in the 2nd century BC. The next slide that I'm trying to show you is an exact slide of the Satavahana Empire and the different dynasties that were there in this particular period. In the deep south, you have the Pandyan kingdom, you have the Cholas, you have the Kalingas, you have the Sakas, you have the Western Satrapas, and you also have the Kushan Empire. So this is a map which is showing you, apart from the Satavahana Empire, and it is also showing you the capital of the two capitals of the Satavahana Empire, that is the Pratishtana and Amaravati. And based on certain, as I was telling you, based on certain inscriptions which were excavated in the Maharashtra, in the state of Maharashtra, there is a kind of an idea expressed by historians that they originally from they were originally from Maharashtra, but at a later time, when some inscriptions have been excavated in the Deccan region, it becomes very clear that the Satavahana Empire had the Satavahana rulers were from the Deccan region, and they had taken two capitals, that is the Pratishtana and Amaravati, which you can see in the map, and they ruled the entire region. And there were some great rulers who even extended their empire almost up to the Gujarat region. So this is one map which is showing you the contemporary dynasties of the Satavahanas. The next slide that I have is a table in which I have listed the rulers. In fact, it is a list of all the rulers who have ruled or who come into the genealogical table of the Satavahana kings. The first king that we can talk about is Simukha, and he was there from 271 to 248 BC. And the next ruler is Krishna. Krishna happens to be the brother of Simukha, and you can find him ruling from 248 to 230. And then you have different rulers. The next important ruler happens to be Satkami II. He ruled for a long period, and a period of 56 years. Okay, and it is accepted that he ruled for a period of 52 years, and there was a lot of extension during his particular period. And assigned period is from 184 to 128. So apart from that, you have Lambodra, you have Apilika, you have Megha Sattvi, you have Sattvi, you have Skanda Sattvi, you have Mrigendra. All these rulers, they have ruled for brief periods ranging from a period of 2 to 12 years, 10 years, etc. And this is a kind of a genealogical table of the Satavahana dynasty, which I'm trying to show you. And meaning reigning years, the Matsya and the Vayu, and the accepted. Accepted is we have some kind of in the column accepted, and the period assigned, which we are showing, is we have some kind of evidence to say that so and so ruler ruled for so and so period, and his period can be measured because of the Vayu and the Vatsa. Okay, so we have different rulers. We start with the Simukha, and we continue with other rulers. We have Hala, we have Mandulaka, we have Purandesa, we have Suranda Savikarani, you have Chakra Savitra, you have Sivatsavi, and the 13th ruler, that is Gautama Putra Satkani, is one of the most powerful rulers. Though he had a brief period for 24 years, he was one of the most powerful. And it was during his period that he was in fact one of the earliest imperialists, where he believed in expanding the empire to the maximum territorial limits possible. And during this period, his period, the Satavahana dynasty attained maximum glory. And then the next ruler also, Ptolemy, was also a very powerful ruler. He also ruled for a long period, for a period of 28 years. Sivaskanda was also a very powerful ruler. And the next powerful ruler was Yajnasri, and he ruled for a period of 29 years. We can say that after Gautamiputra Satkani, the last and the most powerful ruler who have happened to rule the Satavahana dynasty happens to be Yajnasri. And after Yajnasri, we have Vijaya, we have Chandrasri, who ruled for a brief period of 6 and 3 years respectively. And the last ruler happens to be the Ptolemy III. So if you just list out the entire period, it roughly comes to around 460 years. And this 460 years what a period of growth of cultural development and growth of trade and commerce under Satavahanas, and the cultural advancement and the kind of administration that they had developed. It speaks of the beginnings of the ancient strongholds of feudalism, the ancient feudalism, which can be traced out very clearly from this particular period in South India. So we have very important rulers ruling in the Satavahana dynasty, which we can trace out in the genealogical table. The next ruler that the next slide that I'm going to show you is, this is the gateway of the Satavahana dynasty. Okay, and you can just see the intricate designs and the kind of cultural advancement and the details on the gateway ruins of Satavahana, which gives us a very interesting aspect of the Satavahanas' contribution to the cultural development of this particular period. The next slide that I'm going to show you is, this is the Satavahana architecture at cave number 3 of Pandavalevi caves in Nasik. I was telling you, they had also included a major part of Maharashtra and certain parts of Gujarat, and almost up to touching the borders of the Pandyas and the Cholas. They had an extensive empire. So this cave was probably started during the reign of Gautamiputra Satkani. I was telling you earlier that Gautamiputra Satkani was one of the most powerful rulers and builders of not only politically, but other buildings during this particular period. And this rock cut cave that you can see in the Pandavaveni caves in Nasik was finished and dedicated to the Buddhist Sangha during the reign of his son Vasishta Purani around 150 Sarka. So you can just see even here, it's the temple is, the Buddhist Sangha is made out of a single rock, and you can see the designs and the advanced architecture of this particular period. So this slide is also a very important slide, which is showing you of the glory, or which is speaking of the glory of the Satavahana architecture. The next slide is again made out of a rock, which shows the king and the queen of the Satavahana dynasty. And we just cannot say exactly, we cannot spell out who the king was, but the intricate design and the details of the jewelry, etc., and the hairstyle, etc., speaks of a highly advanced architecture that was encouraged and developed during the period of the Satavahanas. So most of the material that is available from the inscriptions and the rock cut temples and the remains of the Satavahana dynasty speak of a very high advanced architectural development during this particular period. So the Satavahanas were very popular, not only for their administration, not only for the constructions that went during this particular period, but also an advanced state of architectural development. So they have made a mark not only in the South Indian history, but also in the nationalist history. And they were one of the most powerful dynasties in South India. From South India, they had almost extended their empires into the North Indian borders. So this slide speaks a lot about the period and times and the advancement that was made culturally during the Satavahana period. As I was trying to tell you, that the Satavahana period had developed a lot of trade, and there was a lot of trade and commerce prevailing in this particular period. The coins that you can find here depict or make us come to a conclusion that the coin age was started probably from the times of Satavahanas, because you can see different metals and you can see different denominations also. They are not uniform, and they are not uniform either in their art or in their value or in their metal. So there was a kind of a variation, and a coinage was introduced in this particular period. So this speaks of the trade and commerce of the Satavahanas, which we will be discussing in detail in the next class. And here you can see again the massive constructions of the Satavahanas. The Satavahanas laid foundation to the Buddhist rock cut architecture during this period at the caves. So this again speaks about the splendor, about the artistic values, and the kind of patronage that architecture really received by the Satavahana kings. The next slide that I'm going to show you is again another part of the Buddhist temple. And this is, you can say that exquisiteness of the architecture in this. The next slide, again, belonging to the Satavahana period. You just look at the intricate designing and the kind of approach that they had taken up to details of art and architecture. Very interesting that at ancient period, they had developed this kind of art and architecture. And here I have a slide of the warrior king of the Satavahana dynasty, one of the most popular rulers of the Satavahana dynasty, one of the imperialists of the Satavahana dynasty, that is Gautamiputra Satkarni, and the empire reached its maximum political limits during his particular period. The next slide that I am trying to show you is again the designing that you find in this particular period. So I have shown you certain slides connected to the Satavahana dynasty, which give us an idea of the advanced architecture. One thing that we should remember when we are talking of art and architecture is that unless or until there is a kind of a and economic advancement, this kind of cultural development cannot be found in any dynasty. So when we are trying to understand the political history of the Satavahanas, we can reiterate the point that they were very powerful rulers. And when we are trying to discuss about the origin of the Satavahanas, the first reference is made in the Aitreyi Brahman, and this refers to the fact that they had preceded the Mauryas, and they had made it two capitals, which I had shown you in one of the slides. One is Pratishtana and the other one is Amaravati, and they ruled from these two capitals. Based on two inscriptions that were found in Maharashtra, that is Nana Ghat and Nasik inscriptions, the claim of the Satavahanas' origin, that they were from Maharashtra, is defended based on these two inscriptions. But after a later period, when excavations were made in the Telangana region, in the Western Deccan regions, especially in regions like Kotilinga, this inscription refers to Simukha, the founder of the Satavahana dynasty, and it very clearly mentions that Simukha had ruled from here. So when we come to an understanding that Simukha was the founder of the Satavahana dynasty, the claim that made by the Nana Ghat and Nasik inscriptions that they were basically from Maharashtra does not hold good, basically because of the fact that the Kotilinga inscription very clearly mentions that Simukha ruled from this particular region. So the fact probably is that Simukha must have started his empire from the Deccan region or the Telangana region. And that is the reason when we are trying to start the history of Telangana, we start with Satavahanas. And this was one of the most powerful regions. So our inscription that is available, the Kotilingala inscription that is available in the Telangana region, very clearly, explicitly mentions that Simuka ruled from this region. As a result of which, we start the history of Telangana from this particular region. It also, not only mentions about Simuka, it also mentions about Karna, and it also mentions about Satkarni I. So inscriptions of Satkarni I, Karna were also found in and around Lingala. So all these inscriptions that are found in Kotilingala defend the argument that the Satavahanas were from the Telangana region, and that is the reason we start our history of Telangana from the Satavahanas. And not only these inscriptions, we have found certain coins in this region, in the western Deccan part of the Telangana. So based on all this, we can say that they are from the Deccan regions. And one inscription that we found in the Balasari inscription refers to Gautamiputra Satkarna as a Eka Brahman. So based on this inscription, when the reference of Eka Brahman compels us to come, not compels, helps us to come to an understanding, probably that the Satkarni of the Satavahana dynasty was a Brahmin dynasty, or they were protectors of Brahmins. So this is very clearly, this comes out very clearly from the Balasari inscription. So there are several inscriptions which is giving us an idea about the fact that they are from the Deccan regions. And the main religions that they defended in this particular period were Buddhism and Brahmanism. And this is coming out to us very clearly from the Karela Chaitya caves. So different inscriptions that we have been able to get from the times of Satavahanas make us come to an understanding that the Satavahanas were basically based from the Deccan region, and you have them claiming their ancestry or the dynasty from the solar, and because based on Saptavahana means eventually turns into Satavahana, so it also indicates that they had a claim for the solar dynasty. So whatever their claims and the inscriptions that are available to us, we can come to a conclusion that they were based from Deccan, and they ruled for a period of more than 460 years, very powerful rulers, starting from late 2nd century to 3rd century BC. So after getting an idea about the political history of the Satavahanas, we will go into the details of administration, society, and economy of the Satavahanas in the next class.